When it comes to anime figures, there are so many different types that it can be somewhat bewildering to newcomers to know what the differences are with each type. In this video, I'm going to be going over the most popular types of figures that I see, from Nendoroids to prize figures, many others in between. And I'll be giving my own personal pros and cons for each particular one. As of always, my opinions are my own, but if you've got your own opinions on these particular types of figures, let me know in the comments and, well, if you like this, consider subscribing. Prize figures. Now, I think this is probably the most common type of anime figures that you'll see in a store in the West, the prize figure. But why do we call them prize figures? Well, in Japan, these figures often come as prizes in arcades, via crane games and other similar types of machines. You do need some skill to win these, but usually they won't cause you to break the bank. Now, recently overseas, these have started being the normal to be sold in stores, likely because they're relatively cheap to acquire and you can mark up the price. Depending on the line, I tend to see these go for anywhere from £10 to, well, £50 to £60, depending on what type of figure it is and who it is reselling them. Some lines in prize figures include the very small world character figures, which include a wide variety of characters, to other large figures such as these Chopper Band Presto ones, to the Grand Land series, and even some larger figures of popular characters. Now, I can see you guys asking already, why would I ever want to buy a scale figure like this when cheap prize figures exist? It comes down to the quality. While prize figures can look pretty darn nice, they are designed to be cheap and cheerful. The overall quality isn't near a scale figure, and you can see this in the painting, the plastics used, and the overall general look. They are a bit worse than the more expensive figures. Personally, I feel the biggest strength of prize figures is the choice. If you want affordable yet somewhat decent figures of series like One Piece, Dragon Ball, My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, prize figures are usually your best bet. Of course, they don't have the same quality as a scale figure, but some of them actually somewhat do. I always think that they're a really good option. These things are absolutely fantastic for people new to or unsure about collecting figures, and for those who may not be able to afford anything bigger. My favourite is this Monster Point Chopper. I always felt it just looks incredibly cool and still do. So we've talked prize figures, let's talk scale figures. These are the big boys in any collection, and sometimes the crown jewels. Now, the big thing about scale figures is their quality. While great prize and mid-range figures exist, it's not until you have a scale figure in your hands that you could tell the difference in the quality. The paint jobs and sculpts are just on another level, with higher quality plastics used, often impressive bases. You're also much less likely to get splotches, paint bleeds or cracks on the figure, and the shading and textures are often well above the usual standard. By the by, you're much more likely to find really good etchy statues in the scale line, if you're into that kind of thing. Of course, with scale figures comes a price, and these things are incredibly expensive, enough to put most people off. But honestly, I feel it's worth trying a scale figure at least once. The quality will change your opinion. It's at this point that I do need to mention that, well, bootlegs exist of scales. Now, they do exist for prize figures and Nandroids too, but I don't know, whenever I see a scale figure for about £20 to £30, super cheap at a convention, it's most likely going to be a bootleg. Keep your eyes peeled. Also, when it comes to scale figures, if you really want that particular figure, make sure you pre-order it. I myself have missed out on a few scales that I really wanted, but I didn't pre-order. Now, I feel like scale figures are the cream of the crop when it comes to figures, and I always encourage somebody to always at least consider buying a scale figure. But what about those ones that everybody else knows? The ones that, well, apart from prize figures and scale figures, has a huge following. Well, Nendroids. Now, I've previously covered Nendoroids in another video, which I will link in the comments, so go check that one out if you haven't already. But Nendoroids are honestly my second favourite collectible anime figure. Cute to look at, fun to play with, and great to collect. That is the motto for a Nendroid, and honestly, I feel like Good Smile have managed to deliver on all of that. Now, these are chibi figures and you have to be all in on that design to get the most out of them. But I feel like these are often the definitive version of some characters. Some of them, well, just not popular enough to get a scale figure, but these are often a better quality than a simple prize figure. Nandroids have a unique spot in that they're cute, highly collectible, fun, posable, come with a load of extra parts, have a wide amount of characters, but they also don't break the bank, usually. And the catalogue is vast. These things don't take up a huge amount of space, and the fact that you can get the entire high-Q teams, or Konosuba squads, or an entire laid-back camping trip, or just about every Hololive girl shows that once they find something popular, Good Smile will roll with it. Honestly, Nendroids can get quite expensive, especially on the aftermarket. And there's a lot of Nendroids that are just out of print and hard to find. But you know what? I really do enjoy buying Nendroids, and quite frankly, I love filling up my shelves with these adorable characters. Next we come to articulated figures. Now there are a wide amount of various companies putting out articulated figures. Some are incredibly cheap, while others are quite expensive. Unlike Nendroids, I'm going to kind of give this its own little thing, because Nendroids are kind of the own little thing, while as, well, articulated figures are a little bit more varied. I'd say the most popular articulated figure is probably Figma. But we do have the likes of S.H Figuarts, Variable Action Heroes, Revoltech, and both the Square Enix Play Arts and Bring Arts lines. They give me memories of growing up and buying action figures all those years ago, so it's cool to have an anime version of an action figure, I suppose. Now, I'm not gonna lie, articulation isn't for everybody. The joints do put some people off, and the price can be very varying. For example, both the Figma and Bring Arts lines are quite expensive in terms of retail. They're from £60 to £70. That's like $90 to $100. But there are cheap alternatives, some of which are really not good quality. But for those who want a figure with a ton of posability, a ton of accessories, and don't like the cheapiness of the Nendroid line, these may be for you. Next we have mid-range figures, and these are the ones that they're not a prize figure, they're not expensive like a scale figure usually, and they're also kind of everywhere. These are the ones where, like I said, they're better quality than a prize figure usually, but not on the same level as a scale figure, and they intended to not break the bank. Pop-up parades are pretty recent, and in my opinion are Good Smile's answer to prize figures, taking a large foot in the Western markets. Some of these are pretty good quality, while others not so much. Sadly, my Okayu broke. It's worth pointing out that Good Smile actually increased the price of their pop-up parade figures recently, but then again, I feel like nearly everywhere's increasing prices, aren't they? I'm not really sold on pop-up parades enough that I kind of feel like I need to buy a lot of them, but I might be tempted with a few here and there, especially the Kiara one. I'm really on the fence if I want that one or not. Another example is Figuarts. Now the prices for these things are absolutely all over the place. I bought some like this Chopper and Robin combination for about £30 about 3 or 4 years ago. But now I see them for retailing for nearly £100, which is very dangerous into scale figure price. Now I'm going to assume the quality on these things is, but well, they need to make a Nico Robin figure worth buying before I find out. Next up, we're going to talk about, well, some of the cheaper options. Now, these are your candy figures, your blind boxes and your Gashapons. The ones you often see on store shelves and more often than not come randomly, blind boxed and randomly packed. Now, the interesting thing about this one is that they are kind of both Western and Eastern releases of these. And they're both a little bit different in how they're produced. Now, the Eastern versions, what tends to happen is you can get a box of blind boxes, if you don't know what's in them. However, that box will pretty much guarantee you one of every single character that you can actually get. The Western versions tend to be a bit more predatory by making some of these rarer than others, and I don't know. If you ask me, if you're giving me pull rates on each character, it starts feeling a little bit more like gambling. So yeah, these are just, well, blind boxes and you risk what you get. You don't know what's inside them often, and yeah, you might get something good, you might get a Trafalgar Law figure. These figures are always just kind of neat. They're usually pocket money prices, so you kind of have to judge them as cheap things, and honestly, for the quality, yeah, often pretty darn nice, if nothing particularly special. They're a fun way to start collecting, and if you buy one or two, you're not going to break the bank, especially if you're not fussy about who you get. I really like the terrariums and these cute sausage girls and panda plushies that you could get. There's also Gashapon, which I think that a lot of people already are aware of. Same deal as a blind box, except you stand at machine, put the coin in, twist the knob, and you get a little bit of merchandise. You can do work and gamble your money away. Win-win. Now we've spoke about the most common ones, however there are a few other types of kind of figures that are a little bit different. First up, acrylic figures and stands. First up is acrylic stands, and I think that these are becoming more and more widespread and common. Don't have the money for a full-on expensive figure, and I'm more than happy with a flat figure that stands on your desk? These are probably for you. I do have a few of these, and you know what? They're fine. It's nice to have a nice little Kiara or Coronet staring at you on your desk. They're nothing special, but when I was in Japan, these things were everywhere for just about every series you can imagine. I suppose these things are pretty cheap to produce, and you know, they look nice enough as a kind of a desk object. While a lot of these are fairly common, they do also have limited productions and often require importing from specific stores, like these Hololive ones for the festival last year. Although I did think it was pretty cool that you could go to, say, Tokyo Tower and they had all of these one-piece acrylic stands that you could only get there. It makes it feel really unique and much more interesting than, you know, Candy Rock or a postcard. Do we still do postcards? The only thing is that I find that after a short while, these things just don't enjoy staying on their bases. All of these Hololive ones struggle to stay in their pegs. I feel like these are just nice little extras. If you want something with that character on, you want it on your desk, you know what, it's probably one of the better options out there. They're pretty cheap to get and they look nice enough, but I wouldn't go overboard on them. Need a hug, but nobody will hug you back? Well, this is why plushes exist. Do these things even count as figures? Well, I suppose they're probably the most common kind of anime merchandise other than trading cards out there. And honestly, this small anime told me that they do count as figures, and quite frankly, I don't want to mess with her. Plushes are soft, cute versions of characters, and, you know, I usually really like these. Over the years, I've bought a handful of my favourites, from Smalls to Pokemon, to a few One Piece ones as well. These are just nice things to have on shelves, beds, toilets, and absolutely don't look threatening at all when doing so. The only thing with plushes is that there are bootlegs everywhere, and in some cases, like these Hololive plushes, the real deals are so incredibly expensive, I'm not surprised people just go for the bootlegs, to be honest. And now we come to the one that everybody knows. Some people love them, some people hate them. They occupy shelves and landfills alike. Funko Pops. Yeah, I couldn't not talk about these, could I? Probably the type of anime figure that everybody knows about, for good or bad. And I'm definitely on the side of... It's the stare. I just can't get past it. Those blank faces. Now, I'm going to be honest here. I really feel that Funko have tried to alleviate these with some of their new ones by giving them a little bit more personality. But other than that, Funko Pops, if you can get them when they're available, they're pretty darn affordable, especially compared to Nendoroids. And, of course, you can keep them sealed in their box and gamble that they'll be worth a lot of money in the future. But the thing is with Funko Pops is that they're incredibly simple, and quite frankly, you pretty much know what you're going to get with them. Their quality can be iffy, but you know as soon as you've seen one of these things, you know what all of them are going to look like. They're pretty honest in some ways. Personally, I think these or prize figures are probably one of the best starter figures you can get.